Hi, Latoya. Good day, everybody. I am thrilled to welcome a most superb lady, a serial entrepreneur, a hotelier, a development expert, a multi hyphenate, Latoyaa Roberts. So this is Tamu Petra Browne, Dr. Tamu Petra Browne. I work with women at the helm of businesses, be those businesses their own or at the helm of public or private sector organizations. And so I will have Latoya introduce herself. We met at Carifesta. So, for those people listening, Carifesta is the Caribbean Festival of Arts. It was in Barbados in August, and we met there and created a great bond. So, Latoya, if you had to do an elevator pitch about who you are and what you do, what would it sound like?
Wow, good day, Tamu, and thank you for putting me in the hot seat immediately. So, hi, everyone. Yes, I'm Latoyaa Roberts. I am a serial entrepreneur based in the Caribbean, specifically located in Trinidad and Tobago, but I live with the mantra of live local, think global. So I do a lot of development work in the global south, focus on communication strategies, focus on business development strategies, focus on international trade and development. And at the end of the day, I see myself as a people connector, opening opportunities to the world.
This is really interesting, this idea of being global, right? While maintaining your connection to who you are and where you came from, which is perfect because today we're going to be talking about building businesses outside the Caribbean's borders. And I wanted to understand, where did you get that philosophy?
I think growing up, I was always interested in understanding about different cultures and different persons. And during my undergrad, even though my main degree was communication studies, I also studied international relations. So I always had this knack for understanding how the global environment works, understanding what happens in other countries and how I can link it back to home. So I always had a passion for exploring the outside. Getting into the unknown or getting to another country was not a fear for me at all. So I think it just became a natural transition of me now moving to entrepreneurship with a more global outlook.
So we actually didn't tell our audience where you are from. So could you tell us where you're from and why it's the best place on earth?
Sure. So I am from Trinidad and Tobago, the wonderful Twin Island state in the Caribbean. And I really want to emphasize that I'm actually born, bred, and grown in Tobago, which is the smaller out of the two islands. So a lot of people always know about being a Trini, which is fine. I have a claim to that name, especially in the international space, but more so I'm a Tobagonian growing
Mhm.
up in Tobago.
Well, I can relate because I am from the Twin Island Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, but a Nivision, which is the smaller of the two. And I understand, how the world sees these twin island states, and sometimes the smaller of the two is forgotten. So I'm glad that you are sharing your pride with being Tobagonian. I wanted to delve a little more into this concept of fear. And the reason I wanted to do that is because women are plagued with fear. And sometimes it holds us back. It's what I call the imposter jumbie, right? So we know about
Mhm.
the imposter syndrome, but I feel like that is really like a ghost. It's mythical, it's not real except to us. What was it about your life or your upbringing that has made you so unafraid? Or are you actually unafraid, or you just work through your fear?
That's an excellent question, Tamu. I think it's a mix. I think one, being an entrepreneur, being a business person, understanding the global space makes you realize that there are risks involved. there's always going to be an idea of going into the unknown or feeling as if you're in an environment that you are not particularly familiar with. But I think it's also the passion and curiosity that I have. I always ask questions like why or how to do it. So I think I've been able over the years to combat that fear or manage that fear by always realizing that at the end of the day, we are all humans. And even though you're in a space of unknown, many times once you start asking the right questions, once you let that curiosity peek inside of you, the answers come out. And many times I've also recognized that what seems so different or so strange or so unknown to you, there's actually some similarities within it. And there's some things that you learn and you cope and you adapt and you just move on with. So I've learned to manage my fears by working through it, definitely. Just saying no and being fearful doesn't appeal to me at all. I manage my risk and go into the unknown.
Now, can we really talk to our listeners about all of the things that you do so that they can understand the nature of your entrepreneurial journey and the sheer diversity of ventures that you are engaged in?
Oh, wow. So that's a long list, but
Mhm.
I'll say I will start with some of the major activities that I'm involved in currently that really help to really build the portfolio of the things that I do. So one, I've been an international development specialist for about 15 years. And a lot of people say, what is that? Like when I try to explain international development, a lot of people think it's a bit obscure. So basically, I work with a lot of international organizations, whether it's multinationals or if it's philanthropic based with private sector based that operate in different countries who want solutions to different problems. So they may need to have project designs in health or education or dealing with something with the environment and blue economy. So along the lines of international development, I do a lot of research. I do a lot of project planning and design. I do a lot of communication strategy to build, to share that development story, to share that impact story of how these organizations go into a space and work and generate success and generate results. Sometimes the results aren't always successful. So I just have to say generate results, whether it's positive or negative, and what are the lessons that could be learned. So, and I have been doing that for about 15 years. I've worked in Asia, I've worked in Africa, I've worked in Latin America and the Caribbean, I've worked in Europe, I've worked in North America, because that is where the donors are, that's where the philanthropic end of the business model is. And then that money and those projects are now diversified down into the global south. So I've been doing that. But in addition to that, I've always had a strong passion for communication and media development. So a part of a lot of my work over the years have been working in different organizations as it relates to communication strategy, media, marketing, messaging, speech writing, overall presentation of your company's strategic goals and directions, but from a communication lens. A lot of people always talk about, okay, the organization needs to have a strategic plan, and that's wonderful. But within the strategic plan, there's also strong communication plans built within the strategic plan. So I've worked along those lines in terms of your visioning, your messaging, your communication goals to your audience as your organization grows. Smaller projects that I've worked with is I also have a small hybrid publishing company called Books by LR, where I work with authors within the Caribbean region to actually self-publish their books. Because I do believe Caribbean people have stories to tell. We have strong voices, we have strong passions. So I'm an author myself of 3 books, and I've also worked with at least 50 authors by now within the region in terms of self-publishing their work. And this passion really came about 5 years now that I have been doing this. And I must say, it has been so fulfilling to me to listen to people's stories, to think through their plot, to think through what exactly the message that they have to deliver to the world. And when you see that client really hold that final book in their hand, the joy that they give, and then when you see customers purchase the book and the feedback and reviews, I think that is so lovely. And our Caribbean stories need to be told, and it has to be told from non-traditional publishers. It has to be told from Caribbean voices, because we have a unique part in this world, and our story should be told just as much as the mainstream larger novels, etc., are to be told and in the market. So that is what 3 things on my list so far. Tamu, tell me if I
Yes,
can keep
yes.
going.
You have more to go. Yes, I want them to understand.
Well, let me talk a little bit about this hotel thing, since on the label
Mhm.
here you have me as serial entrepreneur slash hoteler. So, recently, about 4 months ago, my husband and I, we really engaged in a new venture where we are actually exploring the idea of ecotourism and sustainability and health and wellness by actually owning and managing a hotel based in Ecuador. And specifically, the hotel is like 1 hour out from the Amazonian jungle area of Ecuador in a city called Banos. And this kind of project appealed to me because, one, growing up on this small island of Tobago, tourism is what stood out to me growing up. My father's a taxi driver. My brother works in the tourism industry. I was once a communication officer in the tourism industry and the government arm of it. So tourism is what I breathe, eat, sleep, live, grow, learn. And then I had the opportunity to look at, again, the lessons that I learned from home, and then look in that Amazonian context to see that, yes, they didn't have beaches, they didn't have sea, but it still had some elements of the tourism product that I'm accustomed to in Tobago, which is health, wellness, green, serene, love for nature, love for the environment. And then because I also had a strong aspect of international development, I wanted to also focus a lot on sustainability in terms of sustainable tourism. So as a result of that, we are now managing that 20-bedroom property located in Banos, Ecuador. And it's a lovely relationship and experience, but it also speaks a lot about intercultural communication. It speaks a lot to understanding how the client perceive um, work to be done as a foreigner getting into a new space, but also it involves me bringing that international experience of what a tourist or a visitor might want to experience while they're in the local Ecuadorian space. But at the end of the day, I think tourism goes across many languages, and tourism is about that internationalization of flavor, of mixing local with the international and building a really nice sustainable tourism product. So I'm enjoying creating that product at this time.
I also believe that I spied uh leather goods, more
Yes.
like trunk, maybe a trunk show. I'll call it a trunk show, a leather goods trunk show.
So,
Have you added this to your
yes.
portfolio? So talk to us
So,
about that.
yes.
And do also let our listeners know the name of your hotel that you're managing or co-managing in
Sure.
Ecuador.
So the hotel that we are managing in Ecuador is called Shannon 360 Hotel. And the name of the company that we formed in Ecuador is called Lambs Investment. Yeah. So, funny enough, right? Businesses have a way, like if you study business and you're into business development, you know that business could grow vertically or it can grow horizontally. And while just now getting into the Ecuadorian market and understanding how it works in terms of the hotel, other opportunities started to spin off from it. And one such opportunity is now the idea of, if you do research on what the country Ecuador is famous for, you will realize that it's famous for, one, export of flowers, specifically roses, export of fruits, specifically bananas. They also have a strong handicraft industry through traditional artisans with Ecuadorian leather, and also the wool material. Ecuador, Peru, all those countries along the Andean mountain, they have the llamas and the alpacas, and they are known for really good, nice wool and cotton material to make clothing, really thick, nice, sustainable clothing. So again, you're in this space, you're learning about the culture, you're learning about the business, you're learning about the opportunities. And another opportunity came on our laps to actually create our own design called
Ah,
Queer Designs. So it's authentic leather and artisanal goods made in Ecuador and now shipped and marketed to the Caribbean as our market.
Mm.
And that is what Query Designs does. So we have been able to go in and work with the leather people there to select the patterns, the design. So and we're at the factory and we're choosing our own leather, the material, the color. You're seeing it stretch. You're looking at your pattern designs that you want, your styles that you want. You're talking to them about what you think will be suitable for you and the market. We in the Caribbean like big things. So people want very big bags, who want plenty bags with plenty zippers, who want
Yes.
kind of material.
Compartments.
Exactly. So you're talking to the artisans and you're explaining to them what you want your product to look like. And then it's made from scratch, generated by our ideas and our expectations about what we want for the product. And it's a really good opportunity because it has given job opportunity and an income to the local artisans there, because we are now purchasing this product that is made for us and then exporting it back within the Caribbean region.
Of course, quite awesome. I want to talk about opportunity discovery, Latoya. And as you add more ventures to your portfolio of businesses, what would be the criteria that you are using to ascertain which opportunities are best suited for you and your team? And additionally, how are you even finding these opportunities? I believe that many people would love to know what is your opportunity discovery process?
Wow, excellent question. Opportunity discovery process. Quite frankly, Tamu, I don't believe there is like an exact
Mm.
pathway or process for me. And I just want to go back and share my story about how we ended up in Ecuador. My husband and I, we wanted to go on vacation earlier this year in February. And I've been exploring the Latin American market for quite a while. So I've been to Brazil, Colombia, Chile, etc. And for some strange reason, I said, okay, let me check out Ecuador. It seems cool. It wasn't like big on my radar before. And we went. And while there, we just fell in love with it. So my new passion and my new love for Ecuador and doing business in there was just a opportunity that came at a moment's notice. And when I looked at it, I analyzed it. And I'm very honest and transparent about it. I could have probably decided to venture and do business in any other Latin American country. But one, I found the market was smaller for me. I didn't want to get engulfed in the big shacks like Mexico or Colombia or Brazil immediately, because I'm still growing as an entrepreneur and a business development specialist. So I looked at the size of the market and what I thought I could have easily integrated into. Secondly, in terms of specifically the tourism product that was there in Ecuador, I found similarities to what I had at home. And three, I don't know if most persons who are aware who are listening, but Trinidad and Tobago is really suffering right now from a foreign exchange crisis of really getting access to US dollars. And the Ecuadorian market is actually US dollars based now. They converted their currency to US dollars about 10 years ago. So for me, it made ultimate sense. I didn't have to worry about now converting Mexican pesos or Colombian pesos to US. And for me, US was prime. So it made sense for me to get into a market that could earn US dollars without having to deal with the challenges of getting into mainstream US market at this current time. So those were kind of factors that stood out for me of what drew me to Ecuador. My other business activities that I've started in the past, for example, my book writing passion, is because I've always been involved in media, communications, literature, and I'm just a natural orator. So it just became it in its nature that I started to write, edit, and publish books. So I think different things, different opportunities and instances happened in my life. But I will say you need to have a knack for looking for the opportunities when it comes to you in whichever form, analyzing it and being able to take that risk and go for it.
Now,
Hope that answers the question.
yes, very, you can see and trace your strategic thought. You are very strategic. And I can see the transfer of knowledge and skills from your business development specialist and international development specialist, alter ego lives, I would say. So, what I also want to discuss is the idea of being an exporter and the limitations, particularly in the OECS. There are a lot of limitations regarding export. So our entrepreneurs, and I'll speak for St. Kitts and Nevis in particular, they have difficulty exporting because of logistics challenges. The ecosystem is not appropriately developed so that your labeling standards and simply just basic logistics. What might you tell an entrepreneur in St. Kitts and Nevis with excellent products? I have clients that are formulators. I have clients that are fashion designers. I have clients that are bag designers, and they are making world-class products. But, sometimes we feel that we are tied to spaces that have these challenges and are under-resourced. What might you advise them to do in order to get to the world's market? And also, what type of advice might you share regarding the perception of what is the world? Because here you are in Ecuador, and I believe, for me, I have never engaged with anyone who has so boldly said that I am going to enter into a market that is so unlike mine. So what is the advice you would have so that women in particular, but entrepreneurs in general, who are facing these export restraints and challenges, how can they spread their wings?
Thanks so much for that question. And it's a twofold question. I'll go with the first part. One, business as we knew it 20 years or 30 years ago is not the same. There is the incorporation of technology in so many parts of the business process that can help you go across borders. So, for example, a graphic artist or a fashion designer. Yes, I know you maybe want a station in St. Kitts to produce majority of your work, but consider having collaborators in other destinations and in other locations that are giving inputs into your product. And depend upon the percentage of the inputs, then the country of origin for the product could still actually be within your country of origin. I also want to encourage persons to realize that there are so many digitalization of services as a primary export. So this is especially for persons who are in the services industry rather than the manufacturing and product base. But Caribbean people need to continue to export our services worldwide. So you could be working for a company, you're in St. Kitts as a graphic designer, but there's the whole marketplace of the internet where you can be selling your graphic design services, where you can create IP products and now use that IP product to sell to other businesses for inputs into their other production lines. So yes, we understand that we have challenges with connectivity and logistics in terms of shipping physical products, in terms of the amount of output that you want to make into the international market. But there's a lot of technology that exists now that could really help businesses scale without primarily dependent on always being in the Caribbean as the main point of your service delivery. So I know a lot of companies based in Trinidad and Tobago have contracts with organizations and companies based in China to manufacture their product, and then it is redistributed from there. So you don't have to worry about the shipping logistics challenge in St. Kitts because your hub and your production space is actually over there. So I think you need to take the risk. And I also found that the cost of production lately, it is very relative. It really depends. You know, long ago, people used to want to have thousands of dollars to start a business,
Right.
but now you don't. You
Mhm,
don't.
mhm.
And the second question that you asked about in terms of specifically female entrepreneurs and really just knowing how to start or where to go. I honestly think it has to do with a transformational mindset, a development mindset, a mindset to export and grow. If you live confined to a tiny space and you're only thinking that that tiny space is your market, then you will not force yourself, you will not venture to grow. But if you have a mindset that you want to go international, that you want to export, you want to start delivering goods and products to Barbados, to Trinidad and Tobago, to Guyana, and then you move down the South American market chain, etc. You will get there if your mindset is geared towards this. So you really this business strategy, as you were saying, everything is about strategy and mindset. You know, yes, money and capital goes a long way, but there's a lot of money, there's a lot of capital out there, but you have to get that mindset that you want to do it and you are going to take the risk and venture. And the last thing I want to say, sometimes we within the Caribbean, we get ashamed of failed businesses. But most serial entrepreneurs have like 40, 50 companies, and 10 or 20 of those might crash before that one became a millionaire company. And sometimes we get intimidated by friends and family because they may laugh you and say your business bust, or they might feel your business not doing so well, or they might be like, but you always on the hustler, you always had a business idea, you always making something new. But that is what an innovator is. That is what an entrepreneur is. I prefer to have a young person who every 2 weeks, every 3 months, they have a new business idea and they're piloting, they're exploring ideas, they're collaborating. And then eventually that business will stick. I've had business opportunities that I started and eventually it didn't work out and I had to close them down. And I've taken the skills and the knowledge that I had from that previous business and now applied it with my lessons learned and doing better at another business. So you need to have that entrepreneurial mindset of having many business ideas, planning them out, and seeing which one you want to execute. But it can't be just one business idea and that's it. You have to keep trying, molding, and shifting. Be agile. That is quite okay in this industry.
Be agile. You know, I'm the creator of the High Growth Entrepreneurship Roadmap, which is its own business model, which is for entrepreneurs, but particularly for female entrepreneurs. And one of the core elements of that model is that mindset piece. Because if you have not determined or decided that you are going to do business in an innovative way and a way that delivers high growth, then you've lost half the battle. So it begins with the mind. And so I
Agreed.
certainly agree with that. I wanted to talk a little bit more about money and capital. And you have provided a different insight to what I hear from most entrepreneurs. Most entrepreneurs are saying, Tamu, I can't grow. There's no money, there's no capital. And they focus on grants, which those might be great, but they're not really sustainable for building business sustainability. What are some practical tips that you would provide in terms of bootstrapping, reinvesting your profits, or a strategy towards being able to harness money, capital, and resources in general to help entrepreneurs on their high growth journey?
Thank you so much for that question. Tamu, there are a lot of resources out there. Unfortunately, I do find for us here in the Caribbean, we are not tapping into a lot of the philanthropic and a lot of the investment and angel capital schemes and founders investment schemes, etc. I don't know if it's because the idea is still very novel to us in the region. I don't know if it is because we don't understand within our business model that you need an investor and you're willing to give 20% profit of your returns. So I don't know if it is that for us here in the region, we think that once you start your business, you want to start your business alone, make your money alone, and keep your money alone. So the idea of having an investor or borrowing money to start a business is something that I found Caribbean entrepreneurs run away from. We really want the government grants. We really want the little bit of funding to start and pilot. But in terms of taking that big risk and going big, persons are very fearful of that. I also think within the Caribbean, we need to be aware that there are also so many new forms of getting money, such as crowdfunding. There are new forms of money through digital currencies, etc. Like I belong to this founders network, and they explore a lot of digital innovation in terms of how you're using digital currency to raise money for business. So I guess we're still so much in the cash-based society that you're waiting for somebody to give you $5,000 or $10,000 in cash to start the business. And they do not realize that there is so much technical skills and equity and those kind of digital assets that could actually help move your business along, and the idea of having investors into your business. Now, I ain't telling nobody to have an investor in your business and that person taking 80% of your business and leaving you with 20. You have to decide on a business model that works for you and decide on what is your share and your profits, etc. going to be like. But especially for Caribbean businesses, bootstrapping is great for those who could afford it and who could do it that way. But I do think there are a lot of philanthropic and a lot of investment persons out there waiting to put money into new ideas and new activities. And the African continent is growing a lot with that kind of business. Uh, Asia, specifically in terms of India, South Korea, Malaysia, Singapore, etc., is going great in terms of that. But somehow I haven't seen the Caribbean really take on a strong startup. Yes, there are startup and accelerators here, but I do think specifically as it relates to investors and that equity sharing for Caribbean businesses, it needs to be stronger.
I certainly agree. I mean, I've had a number of accelerators. I would have been at the helm of a significant government venture capital program, multi-million-dollar program. And what I can say, I also had issued a survey, an instrument about perceptions of Caribbean entrepreneurs in the OECS regarding investment and investors. And overwhelmingly, the respondents indicated that they were unwilling to give up a share of their business in any form, or even in terms of not even equity, just in terms of repaying loans by private equity
Yeah.
players and not necessarily banks and financial institutions. The response was an overwhelming no. And so that also speaks to mindset. I wanted to discuss networks, partnerships, etc. Now, everybody who knows me and has been in conversation with me in business environments, they know that I speak all the time about the science of networks and networking regarding weak ties and strong ties. And you mentioned some interesting networks that you are part of. You spoke about that founders network. I'm going to need an invite, Latoya, okay? That founders network regarding digital assets and um, this type of digital framework for funding. Can you talk to us about how one networks for business growth and what types of networks should entrepreneurs seek out?
Excellent question, Tamu. And to start that answer, I would like to encourage persons to really absorb this statement. Your net work is your net worth.
Yep.
For me, I really operate on that premise. So over the years, I've been able to build strategic relationships and partnerships with persons in many different spaces, whether from academia, whether from business, whether from legal, whether from civil society, etc. And what you find is that when you are in those circles, one, you can talk to people about similar business ideas and opportunities that you are trying to investigate and understand. Two, you are able to pull from resources or even negotiate better for services and resources if you're in that network of people. And then three, at the end of the day, it really helps to support your business. When, as a business person, you are part of a business chamber or association, because it introduces you into the policy mechanisms of a country, of a governance system that will help, or the industry or the ecosystem that your business is in, that you need to figure out to help your business grow. So, for example, when I started my business in Ecuador, I knew nothing about Ecuador. Nothing, nothing, nothing. So
Mhm.
there I started to pick up the phone and call around and talk to people in my network. Hey, who is the ambassador to TNT for Ecuador? Or is there a trade office? Or is there some kind of business development committee or somebody? Because here was I, as a non-national to that country, trying to get into that country market. So you needed to talk to people within a network who might know somebody or refer or have some kind of dialogue or opportunity to connect. And from there, it snowballed me into one organization, into one person, into one opportunity. And I was able to gather the information that I needed to get my business across. Likewise, I belong to two of the business associations here in Trinidad and Tobago, the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce, and also the Trinidad and Tobago Coalition of Services and Industry. And that is a collection of business people in different sectors and different industries. So not you have to know to screen the information that matters to you. So not everything that pops up on the website or on the chat or that they offer will appeal to me. But I'm in my corner looking for the things and gravitating to the information and the opportunities that will fulfill my task and my things that I need to get done. And likewise, other people might reach out to me for services, opportunities, strategic arrangements of things that need to be done. And I found that this is such a wonderful way to move business along. So your network is your net worth. That will help you in the business environment.
Most definitely. And in her coaching and co-working program, we have another one coming up in 2026. We're in our first cohort this year. We have an entire module on networking, and I've seen it play out in my life, my business growth, etc. But I don't think that people understand that in everything in business, even in networking, there is a strategy to it, and really understanding that it is the people who are not closest to you that bring the most value and knowledge to you when it comes to business growth. Now, as we wrap up, I want to paint a picture for the people who will be listening, and they're going to say, Tamu, this interview was very motivating. We love Latoya. She is doing so many things. And I know that they are imagining that you have a humongous team of people, and they're going to say, well, she can do that because she has maybe 50 employees or something of that sort, right? Could you talk to us about how you manage these businesses? What does your team look like? And what would be the number one piece of advice for managing a portfolio of ventures?
Wow, Tamu. I think maybe some people say I'm a superwoman because no, I do not have a large team in any way. All my business activities and my endeavors start at the base, at the core being my husband and I. At the core, in terms of my hotel in Ecuador, I have staff. So I have a general manager and staff on the ground there. In terms of my company Books by LR, it's just myself and one other person, my graphic design artist, who do those components. In terms of my other business activities, I have two other strategic business consultants slash advisors who do work on the ground. So one, you have to be smart about the skills and the resources that you are pulling into your team and what you need them there for. So HR capacity is important. I like to work with a very high multi-skill, multifunctional team. That is for me. So I am very good at multitasking, and I prefer the persons that are around in my team and core. They are good with different skill sets and can multitask. I know other people may disagree, and they build their team based on more specialization of persons being specialists in different areas, and they hire specialists through every single task within their workflow. I have found for me that system does not work for me because I like to multitask. Also, I like to learn. I like to learn by doing. I like to experiment, explore, and learn. So that has worked for me. But within having a multi task team and having a high performing team, I will say work-life balance is important. Finding that space and that time to do what you love, you engage into business activities that make sense for you, and that it's not a burden or a pain, or you're not finding joy in engaging in it. I think that will really help make the difference. And lastly, there's certain things that you can outsource where you need to. If you have a business model where you do not need a full-time staff to do this activity, then I also have a business network of associates that I could outsource specific things at a point in time to get done from those core service providers. So that is how my business model works for me. And it has been useful to me in terms of the businesses and what I do. That's what I will say about that.
Well, thank you for that insight, because I believe that there is this fallacy that to have high growth enterprises, that you need to be maybe a multinational, or you need to have a number of brick and mortar spaces, or you need a team with multiple departments and divisions, that your HR capacity bill might be 60% of your revenue. I believe that these are the types of images that appear in entrepreneurs' minds when we talk about doing big business and doing business outside the region's borders. And so I am glad that you have dispelled that myth, but also sharing with our listeners that this works for you. It might not work for everyone, but it certainly provides an alternative view. So,
Yes.
Latoya, we are wrapping up. What do you have happening? Let us know how we can support you with any of your ventures.
Thanks so much for this interview. I think it was so lovely chatting with you, Tamu. I really enjoyed sharing just the love, the knowledge that I have had in terms of growing as an entrepreneur. Um, the year is coming to end. It's 2025. And what I will say in terms of books by LR, I am going to, and this is a prelude for my birthday, I am going to launch an opportunity to give one author based here in Trinidad and Tobago the opportunity to publish their book, courtesy of Books by LR. So persons could follow that social media page for when the information comes out in November, to see if you will be that lucky person who had a Caribbean story to tell, who have an opportunity that you had in your mind and you really need to get it out. So I'll be doing that in terms of Books by LR. In terms of what I'm doing with the hotel in Ecuador, next year I will be doing a lot of trips, taking Caribbean people to Ecuador, and hopefully also doing a reverse where I'll be bringing Ecuadorians to the Caribbean. So I'm really working on sorting out that business model and the partnership and strategic arrangements to make that happen. So if you ever thought about Ecuador, if you're from the Caribbean and you're saying, I'm looking for a trip to go, I don't know who to travel with, if you focus on health, wellness, sustainability, tourism, and getting to see the Amazon from the Ecuadorian part of it, do check us out at Shannon 360 Hotel. The information will be there in terms of those stores for persons who may be interested in that. I think those are two big things that you can look forward to coming out soon from me at this point in time.
Big things indeed. I'd like to thank you, Latoyaa Roberts, serial entrepreneur extraordinaire, hotelier, mother. We didn't say that, right? Mother,
Yes, wife.
wife, so many things, a multi hyphenate genius. And I'd like to thank you for sharing your time, but even more importantly, your expertise, your lived experience with us. So thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.